Hey, this is Scared of Reddit. Thanks so much for hanging out with us for this one. Today's story takes us back to a hot summer day in the 1970s at a beautiful, crowded public park. A simple request for help from a handsome stranger becomes a brush with something truly, historically evil. This is a story about the kind of intuition that saves a life. Let's get into what happened. There are certain instincts that you learn, habits forged in the fire of experience. For Laura, the habit was her keys. She never went anywhere without them laced through her fingers, the cold metal a familiar and formidable weight against her knuckles. It wasn't paranoia that drove this ritual. It was a memory. The memory of the hottest, sunniest day of 1974, the day she almost helped a handsome stranger put a sailboat into his car. It was July, and Lake Sammamish State Park was overflowing with the lifeblood of summer. The air was thick and sweet, a cloying perfume of coconut sunscreen and grilled hot dogs. The beach, a chaotic tapestry of brightly colored towels, buzzed with the tinny overlapping songs spilling from a dozen transistor radios. Families laughed, children shrieked with delight in the cool water, and the sun beat down relentlessly from a perfect cloudless sky. She and her friend Carol were 19, fresh-faced and buzzing with the simple joy of being young, free, and out of the city. They baked on their towels, letting the sun turn their skin a tender, satisfying pink, feeling entirely safe in the bustling crowd. Around 4 p.m., when the sun finally began its slow dip behind the tall firs ringing the lake, casting long, dramatic shadows across the grass, they decided to pack it in. Feeling sun-drunk and content, they trudged up the grassy hill toward the sprawling parking lot, their damp, gritty towels slung over their shoulders. The happy din of the beach began to fade behind them, replaced by the gentle rustle of the trees and the distant hum of traffic. And that's when he approached them. Laura noticed him first because he seemed so utterly out of place. While everyone else was sweaty, sandy, and relaxed, he was immaculate. He wore a crisp white polo, clean tennis shorts, and leather boat shoes without a speck of sand on them. He was handsome, conventionally so, with friendly eyes, a sweep of well-kept brown hair, and a warm, disarming smile. And one of his arms, his right arm, was held fast in a pristine white sling. "Excuse me, ladies," he said, his voice as smooth and clean as his clothes. It was an educated voice, calm and polite. He gestured with his good arm, his left, towards the upper parking lot. There, parked strangely far from the other cars, sat a tan Volkswagen Beetle. A small, single-person sailboat was resting awkwardly on the ground beside it. "I'm so embarrassed to ask," he continued, a note of gentle frustration in his tone, "but I just can't seem to manage this on my own. Would you mind giving me a quick hand getting my boat on the roof rack?" A pang of sympathy shot through Laura. He looked so earnest, so genuinely flustered by his predicament. A handsome man, injured and struggling. It was the setup for a summer romance, not a horror story. "Of course," she started to say, taking an instinctive step toward him, ready to play the part of the helpful young woman. But before the words were fully out of her mouth, Carol's fingers clamped down on her arm hard. The grip was urgent, almost painful. "Laura, no," Carol whispered, her voice suddenly tight and low. "My mom is expecting us for dinner. We have to go." Laura looked from Carol's wide, nervous eyes back to the man. "His name was Ted," he said, offering another self-deprecating little laugh. "It'll only take a minute, I promise. It's just heavier than it looks." He was still smiling that perfect, charming smile. But now, with Carol's fear radiating beside her, Laura started to see the cracks in the facade, the details that didn't add up. Why was his car parked all the way up here on a grassy incline, so far from the actual boat launch down by the water? It made no sense. And the sling, it looked brand new, perfectly white, not a speck of dirt or a single scuff on it. It looked more like a prop than a piece of medical equipment. Laura looked at his eyes again, truly looked past the friendly crinkles at the corners. The warm smile didn't quite reach them. Behind the charm there was a weird flatness, a predatory stillness. It was the look of a crocodile, patiently waiting just below the surface of the water. The sympathy she'd felt moments before curdled into a cold spike of dread. The air, heavy with summer heat, suddenly felt frigid. "I'm really sorry," Laura said, a new firmness in her voice. She shook her head and let Carol pull her away, taking a deliberate step back. "We're late. We have to run." For a single terrifying split second, the mask didn't just slip. It fell away entirely. The charming smile vanished. His jaw clenched so tight the muscle bulged in his cheek, and his eyes flashed with an expression of such cold, bottomless rage that it stole the breath from her lungs. It was an absolute void of empathy, an abyss. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. The charming grin snapped back into place, as if it had never left. "No problem at all," he said, his voice still impossibly pleasant, betraying none of the fury she had just witnessed. "You ladies enjoy your evening." They didn't need to be told twice. They didn't walk, they practically ran to their car, the sound of their own frantic footsteps loud in their ears. Fumbling with the keys, Laura unlocked the doors and they scrambled inside, locking them immediately. As she jammed the key in the ignition and the engine roared to life, she glanced in the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, a solitary figure on the hill next to his ridiculous landlocked sailboat. He hadn't moved. He was just watching them go. The image was burned into her mind for the entire drive home, the feeling of his eyes on her back, a feeling of an escape she didn't fully understand. She and Carol wouldn't find out how close they had come until much later. Weeks turned into months. The summer faded, and then his face was everywhere. On the news, on the front page of the newspapers. Ted, right next to the smiling photograph of a girl named Janice Ott, and then another girl, Denise Naslund. The news reports laid out the story in horrifying detail. He had approached them later that same afternoon, at that same park. He used the same name, the same story about an injured arm, the same pristine sling, the same tan Volkswagen Beetle, and the same sailboat. Unlike Laura and Carol, those young women had agreed to help. They believed the handsome man with the disarming smile. They walked with him to his car, and they were never seen alive again.